Hello, everyone. It's my great honor to be invited to conduct this talk for the spotlight of JSICE. And in this talk, we're going to be talking about the memory efficient modeling and the slicing of large-scale structures. My name is Charlie Wang from University of Manchester. This is a joint work with the TU Delft and the Chinese University of Hong Kong and the Zhejiang University. So if you're looking at the complex lattice infill structures, nowadays are being more and more widely used for additive manufacturing, especially in those optimized mechanical strengths. And a lot of recent work can be found in topology optimization for those infill structures, and also widely used in the lattice structure for the lightweight design. But there are a lot of problem happens, especially when you have a very, very complicated geometry involved in the computation, and you have a large memory consumption in both the modeling and the slicing process. And one of the major bottleneck is like many of those methods nowadays still, although they're conducting the modeling in the implicit representation, but still need to convert those implicit model back into the mesh representation by using STL file. So if, for example, if you're looking at a strut structure, lattice structure with around 10 million struts, it will consume about 59 gigabytes of memory. This causes a lot of problem. One is like a long time for processing and harder to fit into the desktop level of workstation, and also a long time for adding supporting structures. On the other aspect, this kind of bottleneck prevent optimization of the lattice structure in large-scale applications. For example, designing specially graded material properties. And so to tackle this problem, in this piece of work, we're trying to using abstract representation. It's like graph-based representation to represent the lattice structures like kind of connected edges of a graph. And if you're looking at this, you may have this kind of very straightforward implicit sorted, which is represented as an offset distance function of those connected lattice structures of edges. But the problem of this straightforward representation by distance field is like there are kind of uniqueness problems. It's like the closest point of query point is not always unique. And this equals to the sharp features or sharp creases generated on those mid-axis region, which lead to the discontinuity. If we are trying to fabricate a model or structure based on this kind of representation, they may generate concentrated stress in those regions. To solve this problem, in our recent paper, which is published in ASME JSICE, we are trying to represent this kind of model by the convolution surface, where this model can describe the convoluted operators, which is defined around all those connected edge structures. But conventional convolution surface, which is a continuous represented, is harder to evaluate in an efficient way. So we are borrowing the knowledge of computer graphics and we're trying to using the compact representation using compact supported kernel. And by this representation, we're able to have an analytical solution in the closure form to evaluate a function of a convolution surface. So it turns out for every query point, we only need to calculate in those skeletons, which is fall in the spherical covered region of this query point. We only need to evaluate a limited number of skeletons instead of all the skeletons represented on the graph. And here shows a comparison of our results with those distance field. You can see, as what I mentioned in previous slides, for the distance field, you can easily find some of the sharp edges, which always happens in those like mid-axis region of those skeleton representation. And for our model, you can find like there's this kind of regions have already automatically smoothed based on the convolution surface representation. And this shows another example, which is have a different skeletons, which have different supporting radius. So basically, we can using this radius to adjust the density of the lattice structure, which I will describe a little bit later today. And after solving the representation problem, the other problem we need to solve is like, how are we able to develop an efficient algorithm to generate the slicing information? So it turns out generate those two paths which can be used in the additive manufacturing. Here, because all these skeletons which are locally supported and with a limited covered ridge, we are able to using a kind of a stream mode of a scanning platform, scanning algorithm. So basically, only those skeleton edges with their swept solid intersect with this spherical cover region of each skeleton need to be processed. So based on this, after sorting the models according to its height, after sorting the skeletons according to its height along the z direction, we're able to develop this streaming algorithms, which are able to conduct the slicing computation in an out-of-core manner. And after we have this, we are borrowing the method we developed a few years ago, also published in another paper of ASME J-size, trying to generate those contours or toolpaths for each additive manufacturing layer. So basically, when we have a layer intersect with a solid, we are first of all convert this solid into a binary image representation, and which with a dense sampling rate. And after that, we're using the matching square contour extraction algorithm, trying to find out the boundaries, and then applying the constraint Laplacian smoothing to smooth those boundaries, at the same time preserve its topology. And then lastly, we further simplify the boundary to have a very coarse representation in those region with a small curvature and a more finer representation for the region with a high curvature. So at the end, we're able to directly generate the binary image from an implicit solid and then generate this boundary as what is shown in the C figure here. And then we further generate those infill toolpaths to fill those boundary region for those regions circled by those boundaries. And with the help of this kind of tools, we're able to develop a framework to conduct the inverse design of lattice structures to match those prescribed density distribution. So as what I was showing here in this framework, we giving a density field which need to be realized by a lattice structure. And then we generate adaptive surface mesh according to the density requirements. And then we will further refine this surface mesh converting into the volume mesh, and then using the edges of this volume mesh as a skeleton. And then to overcome those supporting structure requirements, so we are first of all inverse scaling those structures. So turns out we generate more self-supporting edges on the lattice structure, and then we are able to further optimize those positions of vertices. As a result, we're able to further enhance those self-supporting property of the structure. And then after we generate this basis structure, we are going into the second phase, which is called a density matching. So we are conducting a lab adaptive subdivision in those regions. We need to have a higher density, and then we further tune those density by generate a large radius for those solid in the region which require the higher density, and smaller radius in those regions needs a smaller density. So as what we can see, we further applying the algorithm we developed in this paper, trying to slice this method in slice this structure in a stream mode, and to generate those sliced binary images. At the end, this shows the final printing result. As you can see, the resultant density matches very well with the given required density field. Okay. So here shows a computational result and the statistics. And you can see like our method shows a very great scalability. We're able to apply the method to our model with more than 14 million struts. And then if we are applying this method in our method, this model in our method, we only consume about 475 megabytes of memory. At the same time, if we applying this method to the matching cube algorithm, which is widely used in the design and computer graphics areas, trying to convert those implicit solid back into a mesh representation, you can find like it consumes more than 85 gigabytes of memory. And even for those light triangulation algorithm, which is recently developed in the CAD community, you can see that they still need to consume about 9 gigabytes of the memory, which is about 20 times higher compared to our method. Okay. So we further applying our method to really fabricate the models, like those models which is fabricated by the Connect object 3D printer for the polyjet, and also we applied it for fabricate a bone structure which is fabricated by the SLM-based metal 3D printer. And here shows another extension of our algorithms. It's like we are further develop this method to not only applying for those lattice structure, which is using in only age as skeletons, we can further generalize this pipeline to STL-free kind of slicing algorithms. So we're applying this STL-free high precision metal 3D printing for the multiple scale TPMS. For those people who are familiar with the TPMS, you will know like for TPMS, it's very easy to represent a smoothly blending from a multiple types of a TPMS surface. Once the P surface, you can see like this figures show a smoothly blending between the P surface to the G surface and to the D surface. And then we are able to applying a multiple scale modeling by nesting those TPMS surface with a different frequency onto the same model by simply applying their intersection or unit, though this kind of a Boolean operations. And then after that, we're able to using the signed distance for those mesh input to generate the boundary of a given model, and then applying the Boolean operations between these TPMS structures and the original model by, again, using the Boolean operation, and then we're able to generate models as complex as this, and also the model as complex as these bone structures. So we are further applying this to realize some of the high precision metal printing, and with the help of our advanced STL-free pipeline, we're able to fabricate a model with a very high accuracy. For example, this model, which is a bone structure, which is content as about a 25 micron, and then for the basic TPMS structure, we can achieve the accuracy about 5 micron. And then one of the major benefit of these multiple scale structures, like we are able to greatly enhance this surface to volume ratio, which brings a very great properties to show a very good performance and efficiency of heat transfer in this passive cooling test. For example, for a 3-level TPM structures, we make it compare with the 1-level TPM structures, and you can see like to decrease the model from a very high temperature back into 55 degree. And for the 3-level TPMS, which is only takes about 167 seconds, and for the 1-level TPMS, which it takes about 249 seconds, which is much longer compared to the 3-level TPMS. And this shows a great efficiency of those passive cooling. And then in conclusion, in our work, we present a new memory efficient representation for lattice structure to solving the large-scale modeling problem and applying them to the spatial gradient material design. And then we have further generalized this method to STL-free slicing algorithm in the streaming mode. So it turns out be able to realize the fabrication of structures with a large number of struts. And then the computational framework, which can be benefited from this kind of memory efficient representation, and also a streaming mode of slicing algorithms, is like we're able to enable the inverse design capability for lattice structure to match a prescribed density distribution, and then achieve the optimal self-spotting. And then in last, we also show another case study of this STL-free design manufacturing paradigm for the high precision metal-based SLM additive manufacturing. Okay. And lastly, I would like to highlight, like, we are already making our source code of both the implicit slicer for lattice structure and also the STL-free slicer for TPMS. The source code available on the GitHub. If you're interested about using this code in your future research, you can simply scan this QR code to access the website of our source code. Thank you very much.